Be more grind, rise, shine through the struggle. Black dollar circulate, flexing muscle. Politics and biz building walls like bricks. Motown soul rap mixed in the fix. Tiny cover spitting truth, microphone holder. Past the noise scene, watch growth in the folder. Black biz bright spotlight in the dark. Hustling hard, lighting sparks in the park. Beam on news, where we breaking glass ceilings. All black every day, income healing. Donnie Glover, Black Wall Street roadmap. Be more flow, real talk, stock rise. Dreams ain't looking hollow. Blueprints, handshakes, enemies wallow. Baltimore kings, queens, crown on the throne. Legacy built, stone by stone. Headlines, deadlines, moves in the background. Make the town, black beard strategist, wealth can't be missed. Twist the plot, make the whole world twist. Be more news, success we inhaling. Victories, iron rest, no detailing. Donnie Glover, rise to shine, let's glow. Focused on green, Black Wall Street in tow.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. My name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. My grandmother told me, my grandfather said, invariably, when I ask people who look like me if they have indigenous roots, there is quite often a pause. It's as if in that moment, the person has to unlearn, unhear everything they've ever been told about who they are from the outside world and reflect on what one's elders told them long, long ago as a child. I've heard such stories told as if they were warned to be quiet about their indigenous ancestry. And then there's the word indigenous itself. For me, there are all kinds of angles to the story, the etymology, if you will. Quite honestly, they insert politics, narratives, and perspectives of everybody except the people in question. By definition, indigenous refers to people or things native or naturally occurring in a specific region. But in the context of people, it specifically refers to the original inhabitants of a place who maintain distinct social, cultural, and political identities, languages, and deep connections to their lands, especially those who were present before colonization. And for me, that's where it gets sticky. We have done a series of shows on identifying who we are as people of the darker hue who have been in this land for thousands of years. There's this growing movement of people reclaiming their indigenous roots. Some have done a ton of research. Some have simply continued the conversation in small circles, and others go online. What we aim to do right here on this show, on this platform, is to create a safe space where experts and non-experts alike who have an interest in our indigenous roots can respectfully share their thoughts. For the record, I come to this as a melanated journalist with Blackfoot and Puerto Rican roots. I'm absolutely in love with the motherland and all her children all over the world. While I've drawn some conclusions myself about whether we are indigenous, Moor, or Hebrew, I'm open to hearing most all perspectives. One follower, for instance, is interested in the UFO perspective. I respect that and am open to even more. One of the biggest challenges in researching North America is access to information. And that is one of the beautiful things about this show and the series of shows we've had up until now, the sharing of information. I do not know everything. I do not pretend to. I am a student for life, and I'm a journalist. No one has a monopoly on knowledge. And today it is easier than ever before to access this knowledge. But we got to remember what we're getting it through. We're getting it through a certain filter. At the same time, we must stay vigilant at all times at who is telling the story. And that's why we have this show, because it is imperative to us that we tell our story unapologetically and without any hesitation or fear. Great. So here we go. We're going to see who's tuned in. And thank you for listening thus far. Venroy July, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm well, Donnie. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's great to see you.
No, thanks for having me.
So this cat here sent a message earlier. We look forward to getting him on the show. We've heard a lot about him on this topic of indigenous. So big ups to Legendary. We've had some really powerful shows in the past. We've touched a lot of things. Everybody knows this cat. He is big time, I tell you. Hello, Candy Bar. Much respect. Venroy, where you from?
From Jamaica originally, from St. Catherine, Jamaica. Then I moved to the Bronx. Been in Baltimore now for 14 years.
What do you think of when you hear the word indigenous?
That's how we got started. Honestly, I don't know that I ever really thought about it. I mean, I guess I always think about it in the context of like Native Americans, but I'm not sure that I've ever thought about it in terms of like, I think the way that you guys are talking about it. So, how about you fill me in exactly what it is?
I will do my best. Let me tell you, this is a tough audience, and I will do my best to summarize the perspectives. So I raised the question, and I'm a journalist. I will say, on my father's side, my great-grandmother was identified as a Blackfoot Indian, Molly Morton. And I know on my mother's side, her father was from Puerto Rico, Boricua. So that would infer I have some Latino roots. I saw a letter from my grandfather's sister once. They're in Brooklyn, New York. That's why a part of why I love New York so much. My mom took all over the world, but particularly people that look like us. So when I think of Jamaica, if I could pull you in, I know there are the Arawak, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Arawak Indians.
The Arawak Indians, yep.
And so there's a strong movement of people younger than me, much younger, who are very adamant about reclaiming their indigenous roots to North America, to this land. I mean, a very strong movement, and it involves researching this thing called the Dawes role, and this is with the understanding that there were black people. So let me just show you a picture. See this picture here? This is one of the many pictures that are out there of indigenous peoples, drawn often from French publications or Spanish publications. From what I gather, the English don't share a lot about what they saw. Secondly, the English were late when it comes to the exploring of the Americas. Of course, we know that Pedro Nino Alonso and other Moors had been coming across the Atlantic for some time. They showed Columbus the way. There are others, and there's so much of the story that gets, people are jumping and say, well, no, that's not right. This is not right. That's not right. There's also, do you have an Afrocentric perspective? Do you have the perspective that humanity, civilization started in Africa? If you do, be aware that there are those who conclude, who submit to, who embrace an Americentric perspective, i.e., Black indigenous peoples have been here for thousands of years. And so that's where the word indigenous gets tricky by everybody, because a lot of the records show, a lot of the records that we get to read would infer, would state that indigenous is primarily those who came through the Bering Strait, up top, north, Russia, Canada, blah, 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 straight on into the Americas. I struggle with that being the only storyline, as do a lot of people who watch this show.
I mean, I guess the question as to what's indigenous and what constitutes indigenous for me is like really a question of how far back you go, right? So I remember being in school, and I certainly remember my African American studies courses, reading and learning about kind of the Olmecs, who are of African ancestry, who came to the Americas, right? And so is the question whether or not when a group such as the Olmecs came, whether they came and met people here, and how far back prior to their landing are we talking about? Like, certainly they were here before Christopher Columbus and some, other explorers. But I guess what's the significance of the delineation between when, who are is it the original people that were here, or is it like the Olmecs? Like, how are we drawing the line about what indigenous really refers to? So I think with the drawing that you have, I think that's like a Olmec head, but is a thought that prior to even the Olmecs getting here, that there were other people that were here before that, and so those are the people that we're talking about. Like when you say that there's a group that's very deeply rooted in this indigenous feeling, I guess what is their perception? Is it that they're going back to black groups, or they're going back to the Africans that actually made their way to this?
I think Sister here explains it best. We ain't African slaves or Euro disease pilgrims. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term $5 Indians. Those are non-indigenous peoples, i.e. white people, white settlers who paid $5 to get on what is called the Dawes roll. Have you ever? Let me back up. I'm being so rude. I did want to make sure I got Sister's comment in, because I gather she knows a lot more than me, and I certainly want to stay in her good church. Specifically Black leadership here in Baltimore. Vinroy July, do you know Dr. Al Hathaway?
We have met a couple of times.
Yes. How you doing, my brother?
Man,
it's great, man. I'm just following your trail as you're redeveloping West Baltimore, man. That's a great thing.
Try my best. Try my best.
Dr. Al Hathaway, you got any Indian in your family?
Man, it's amazing, man. I'm really blessed in that I had two people. One you may have known. You might remember the name Phyllis Hathaway. Phyllis Hathaway was head of here in Baltimore, Maryland. Our African, they had an African name way back when, and she did the work on Kunta Kinte and that whole piece there. And then I had another cousin. Her name was Dorothy Sproul, and she was a Hathaway, and she did the work and the study on the Somerset Plantation, which is in Berwyn County in North Carolina. And that Somerset Plantation also was a part of the study, but roots in terms of to her to just to understand that. Well, what happened there was that plantation with which my family origin is from, there was a steamship line that they owned. So they actually brought their cargo directly from West Africa directly to North Carolina, and they didn't go through a curing center like many persons of African ancestry. So I can go back 5 generations in my family to when we actually came there, and there were even parts of Bill of Lading in terms of my ancestors coming here. But the interesting thing was that there in North Carolina, you had a very major Indian group called the Lumbee Indians, and we saw some of them here in Baltimore around Lombard Street and down in Broadway and whatnot. They were real big here in the 80s and the 90s. They kind of dissipated now. But then my grandmother, of course, when you're going to have African Americans in a community, you will have persons of original Indian ancestry there. There was intermingling in some of my family members there. The interesting thing is that the Lumbee Indian tribe has just been recognized as a nation, but they didn't get those kind of rights like the Cherokees and others, where they got those kind of territorial rights that other Indian tribes did receive. But we did get recognized in terms of the U.S. government, and now, it's interestingly, you got to go through a process to actually become have that kind of dual ancestry, and our family's going through that process now.
So you mentioned the Lumbee. I wanted to see if I can get a picture of a Lumbee in here. And so let me ask you this question, Van Roy. How many generations back can you go?
3 solidly. I think my family was, my country, we were very kind of, very rural kind of upbringing. Certainly my father's generation back, we were in Jamaica, in very rural parts. So a lot of that is like storytelling. How they shared their like upbringing, and people who were, our ancestors, like 3 generations back is as far as I can probably get.
Let me ask you this. Is it a foregone conclusion that all of your ancestors were enslaved or descendants of slavery?
So, not all my ancestors. So, yeah, I mean, that's obviously like a major part of, Jamaica is there's a lot of intermixing that happened in some of my grandmothers and on my mother's side. So there was definitely some, it's called intermixing for better, to be, politically correct. But we certainly are predominantly Afro, the understanding that we come from, Africa. And so
Reverend Hathaway, one of the things that this sister noted before is that we are not, this is one of our previous quotes, about $5. We are the original indigenous Indians, period. And here's our second comment that's on the screen. And so a part of the reason I wanted you here, Dr. Hathaway, is, and you, Van Roy, is because up until this great reawakening of increasingly more, and sister, if I'm describing this wrong, I have no problem you correcting me, but there seems to be a growing we now come across people. We now come we now come to a point where Africa is taken out of the equation by certain people, like indigenous copper skin queen.
Okay.
A totally meaning life started here in North America. I mean, that's essentially what she's saying. Do not want to get it wrong.
Wow.
So an Americentric perspective versus an Afrocentric one.
So is that what you, I want to make sure that we're clear about what's being said. Like, I mean, can this person trace their roots back to American Indians, or is the idea that there is no African, like there was no African, she had no connection to African descent, right? Like, so to me, I'm not sure that I care. The question is like, what do we care about here? Like, if the question is that her lineage has been, I don't know that I really care that much, right? If the thought, though, is that we are trying to separate ourselves from kind of our African ancestry to the extent that there is some, then that's obviously somewhat problematic. But I'm just trying to make sure that we're not mischaracterizing.
I think the big thing that, and again, sister, correct me if I'm wrong, what I get from it all is the land that was stolen from indigenous peoples. There was this reclass, people were already here when the European came. The Europeans came, wars were fought, even wars that we're not taught about in school. We're not taught about the Second Seminole War with Chief John Horse, and I write about it in my second book. Chief John Seminoles, the Black Indians, the Seminoles, they were fighting down in Florida against the likes of Andrew Jackson. They fought to a truce. They were promised land in Indian territory, later named Oklahoma. So these 200 Black soldiers and their families went on the Trail of Tears. They were not told. They were people who fought to a truce with their backs up against the wall in the Everglades. Those who did not surrender are called the unconquered, by the way, Seminoles. But they went to Oklahoma, didn't like it, went all the way through Texas to Mexico, where they became the border patrol for Mexico until the United States ended slavery. Chief John, they're those. So I'm just trying to do my best to fill in the blanks. 100% Indian. So she's saying she's 100% from here. And I know my 4 times grands, 36 generations, we're here. We didn't come from those slave ships.
Well, I can affirm that history
Thank you, sister.
do not necessarily have to have been slaves. I mean, clearly we can say that, but you have to start with the premise that all life originated from Africa. So in effect, we are all of African ancestry, and I don't care whether you go up and you want to migrate into the north and you have European ancestry, or you go out and have Chinese. All life originated from Africa, and that is really undisputed in terms of scientific. I've done a lot of work in terms of African ancestry, in terms of genetic DNA, and so when you think about where is the most variation of life, the most variation of life is in Africa, and so all life originated from there. So I accept. And I'm proud of our DNA. We are 99.9% the same, largely because all life originated from Africa.
So here's another piece to the storyline, and Venroy, I think you can appreciate that. The first place I landed in Africa, and I've been wanting to go to Dr. Patricia Newton. She said
Sure did.
she foretold of me going to Africa years before I went. I missed that woman. You know, she was a psychotherapist.
Yes.
She was my friend, and I would take any damn therapy she would give me, Red. But she was best friends with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
Wow.
For those who may not know the ISIS papers, she's the one who said that we're the only ones who degrade ourselves. We call ourselves the N-word. We call ourselves the B-word. Taking on that trauma. So much trauma has been done to us. We now do it to ourselves. But she foretold of me going to Africa, and in Ethiopia, the first place I would land of all places, would be Ethiopia. I mean, I couldn't have written this better because those students understand that that's the one country in Africa, Liberia and Sierra Leone, were forms of colonization. But be that as it may, I land in Ethiopia, and in Ethiopia is Shashamani, which the Rastafarians down in Jamaica hold. So how what they revere so much.
Yeah, that's a powerful experience there. If you had the experience of going to Ethiopia last June, my family went to Ghana, and that was just as powerful an experience there. And I think that anyone of African ancestry should make a pilgrimage to the motherland. Wherever you may find yourself landing, it just strokes your whole spiritual reality to know that you are international, you're a world citizen, and that you're connected to something far beyond what we can ever imagine.
So I'm actually looking at the comments that are coming in.
That's why I need you, lawyer.
I want to make sure I understand I want to make sure I understand the point that's being made by the people who are in the chat. So
no connection to Africa whatsoever.
No connection to Africa. I mean, but are they saying that is that for everyone or just their specific family?
So,
right, like I misunderstand it. I don't understand the point. Like, as I mentioned, like we can acknowledge that there were Africans that came to the Americas prior to kind of colonization and you know the slave trade. Like we can acknowledge that, right?
Yes.
And you know, presumably, and I'm not gonna. Like, it's very possible and very possible that there are descendants of them that have no connection to the slave trade. I mean, that's not. I mean, that's inevitable. Like that's a fact. Like, I think we can acknowledge it as a fact. And so I guess I'm trying to understand what is the dispute here. If someone believes and they can go back and say that they have proof that that's their lineage, why do we care? Why do we care?
No, I think it's powerful for one to have explored their lineage and understand from where they come and whose they are. But that does not negate the fact of when you talk about the actual species of life, where did it originate?
So here you go. The last line right here. It is the foundation of assumptions. Starts with a button, ends with you and me, that all persons of color up into the DNA. Now this is where Sweet Feather, I get perplexed because, to my knowledge, the oldest DNA is the San Bushman down in Namibia. According to my study, they have all the time when South America, you see, if you look at the continent of South America, it fits right into West Africa. I can see all of that being one landmass. I can see that. Is that what's being articulated here? I'm not sure. But that is where if you connected those continents, that would be Brazil has 100 million black people. I do not believe you had that many people multiplied as a result of the slave trade. I do believe there were black people already.
There's no question, no question about that. I mean, we don't have to hang over all people of African ancestry the mantle of free people, and there were many people that were not the victims of that horrible tragic incident. But I mean, for us to say that life does not originate from Africa, I just think we have to really think about that in a very real way, because that is the center of life.
Yeah, I'm trying to like process.
So they Sweet Feather mentioned Lucia. I haven't mentioned Lucia on the show to date. Her bones were found to be 11,700 years old. Now, here's the thing, and I'm no scientist. They described this haploid group, this particular group, and to me that looks like a black woman. But according to like a black woman to me, I don't know. Why didn't Thera say the hypothesis? Okay. Yes, because Brazil actually took the most slaves in from the slave trade. But hold tight, Rizzo. You can get in a boat off of the coast of West Africa and literally drift into Brazil. You're not going to tell me that given all of the ships that the Africans have built, that black people weren't going to Brazil long before the transatlantic, before the Portuguese and the Spanish. I mean, and then you think about the Moors and the influence of the Moors. So here's a broader question, Rev. Let me help you out. The reason I need you here. This all started when I posed this question: are we Moors? Are we Hebrew Israelites? Are we indigenous? Are we all three? Because Deuteronomy 28 comes up repeatedly, where it talks about the people. It heavily describes what it looked like was separation. And then there's that. They are those. I mean, you've seen the Hebrew Israelites here in Baltimore. When they come strong. When they go in DC, they go strong.
You know, I you know, of course, I'm a product and I'm a proclaimer of religious theology and religious thinking, and I do appreciate persons who connect their sense of religion to a sense of ancestry. But I pose the question. Here's the question: what came first, ancestry or religion?
Oh, ancestry.
Right, ancestry. You know, and so for me, I can rest assured, sleep well, knowing that we were people uniquely kissed by the sun, that have as in our loins all of the power, all of the spirit. I mean, we gave person of African ancestry gave spirit the idea of spirituality, which is embedded in religious thinking all throughout the world. Originates out of the mind of my ancestors and our ancestors, you know. So I you know, I appreciate religious doctrine and religious philosophical thought, but for me and my house, you know, we're going to realize that you're part of a broad unveiling of God who saw into life and spoke into it and caused us all to come into being. And I don't stop there at a particular religious denomination or religious philosophy. I think God, I mean, Reverend Dobbs used to say, either God is God of all or God is not at all. And I think that in that sense, I adopt that same thinking myself.
This is the part I'm not comfortable with. Say I am able to search my ancestry as far back as anyone else watching this broadcast. And I find that I am totally indigenous to this land. Totally indigenous to this land. How do I unlearn the relationships I have in Jamaica with Venroy and his cousins, the relationships I have in Tanzania, the relationships I have with Black people in Brazil, in the Dominican, in Puerto Rico? How do I then say I'm indigenous to this land and I don't mess with y'all no more? I'm only sticking with my people, because that's kind of what I get from this. Like,
is that and that's, I think that's the question that I've been trying to understand, right? Is that the thinking, like, to the extent that, again, if you look, the reality is that to the extent that it's being used as a means of trying to separate you from other people who are, who have had similar experiences in this country and throughout the world, if that's the point of this, then that's problematic. If it's just a matter of, I'm saying I'm indigenous, and I don't really know that I'm really that concerned. Like, if that's your history and that's, you can point back, then that's fine. But the reality then is, and I've traveled, and one of the things that has kind of been, that has always kind of bothered me as I travel throughout, the world, is that I've always kind of acknowledged that people who look like me and who, Black people throughout the world, their lived experiences are somewhat similar, and the way that I'm perceived, maybe there's some variation because people think I'm Jamaican versus how I am. They think I'm American. But the reality is, as I go and I look and I see the experience of people, there is some kind of shared understanding and shared similarity with how the experiences are. And so to the extent that in the US, we're trying to like separate us as being indigenous versus non-indigenous and trying to separate those two graphs, as if there are different concerns and different interests, like that to me becomes problematic, because I don't know that we are in a position that we can make that separation. If you are still fighting the same fights and dealing with the same issues, then fine. I guess I'm trying to make sure that I understand, like, what is the real messaging and the point behind this alliance or allegiance to like this whole indigenous versus like African ancestry. Like, I'm really looking for somebody to help me understand that. like, do you think that is it that? And I'm talking to people who are in the chat who are proclaiming the part about them being indigenous, and that's, again, I'm not here to dispute you and your ability to go back and look as far back as you think. The question for me is, does that mean that your experiences are any different than someone who is of African ancestry? And is this the point of this, to separate your struggle from others? Kind of what's the point here?
Yeah, because when the police pull us over in a car, they're not asking your nationality. I mean, nowadays they just snatching anybody, but prior to Trump, we live in Baltimore. We know what it is. Venroy, I'm curious, in your time in Baltimore, have you ever been pulled over?
In Baltimore? Actually,
Yeah.
no, I've never had it. Actually, I'm lying. I've been pulled over, but it wasn't that serious. Yeah.
Have you ever been approached by the police?
Pulled over in Baltimore where I felt threatened.
Have you ever been pulled? Have you ever been addressed by the police in Baltimore?
I have definitely been pulled over in other places where I have felt threatened. Absolutely. I have not necessarily had that experience here in Baltimore.
Rev, you ever had the?
Sure you have. You can't live in Baltimore not there. Give me an example. You had Stu Sims, who was our state's attorney. He gets pulled over by the police. He's the state's attorney. He gets stopped and pulled over by the police. So I mean, so yes, there is no one is immune from that kind of action that's been taken by Baltimore City Police here, and I would imagine in other cities all around America.
So this is
Someone
my
has said,
question. They say every melanin person is not all the same lineage. I get that, but politically, we all dealing with the same damn enemy. That's
here's the thing.
you know.
No, that's the fundamental question I've been trying to get to. Like, is the point to try to act as if the
It separates. You in Jamaica, the British, you ain't a whole lot of love by the Jamaican for the British. Ain't no whole lot of love for the British in India, largest English-speaking nation on earth. Not a lot of love for the European in Africa, in Nigeria, in France. I'm excited when I see an Ibrahim Traore stand up for Burkina Faso. That's the name of my new book.
Oh my goodness, mate! Just think about it. I would say to anyone that says that I'm indigenous to a particular land, are you able to transfer that land through generations? And was there some interruption that occurred? And if there was,
family.
Who interrupted?
Family is family.
Sure.
They rustled up a whole bunch of melanated people. They not separating you, not even by accent.
No.
I gotta say this. There's a show we did that really got this whole momentum going. And the guy said one thing, and I can't let go of it. He said that Marcus Garvey was a scammer.
Wow.
I said, well, how could Marcus Garvey be a scammer? He said, that's what the American government said. And this guy has been pretty smart in his argument, in his stance thus far. But I said, but that's the same American government you were saying facilitated the theft of your land. How can you now give them credibility, especially against a man who organized the largest organization of melanated people in the world, Universal Negro Improvement Association? Help me out. Help make it make sense. Family is family for me. When I go to Jamaica and I make that phone call, they there. You family for life. In my favorite story about Haiti, I can now talk about Bukiman and the other Jamaicans who were part of the Haitian Revolution. And I do think the Haitian Revolution, let me also add, was very much significant because it kicked it off. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where a fight is about to break out, and either you gonna pluck them or they gonna pluck you. We going back many, many years. I know you guys haven't been in a scuffle in a long time, but it was always who gonna punch first, and that person that tended to punch first had the advantage, and that's what Haiti was. That's what the Haitian Revolution was for Black people in the Western, melanated people, because you get in trouble for saying Black. Melanated people in the Western Hemisphere, because Black is a color, and it strips us of our respective cultures and histories. I don't want us to get separated by words.
No question.
Because we've been too unified in the spirit. Wherever we from. When I hear Bob Marley sing about old pirates, yes, they robbed, I stole I from the merchant ship. Who can't relate to that? Whether we were a part of that story, we heard of that story, it affected us. It's like the drug thing. It affects somebody, you know. No, you ain't never sold dope. No, you ain't never sold crack, Ready Rock, what have you. But you know somebody who's been on either one side or the other, and I mean family. Amen?
Yeah.
Don't get new on me now. That's just my thought.
I was at a gala for Elevate, and they played the song by LaBrie Sofree, Something Inside So Strong. And I believe that is the very reality, that which is in us connects us in a very unique way for persons who have had those similar experiences and who share the same DNA.
Again, I keep going back to this point. Like, to me, the issue is not about, like, I don't care if you want to say that you came from Africa, or if you can go back to like, how does that impact your existence in whatever country that you're living in, right? And like somebody asked, what about the people who were before them? Okay, fine. But the reality is that melanated people throughout the country, throughout this world, have been experienced, and there is a shared experience that we have, whether or not you can trace your roots back to Africa, or you want to say that you're indigenous to the United States. When you wake up and you when you are out in this world, unless you could tell me that people are making a differentiation between whether or not you can say your roots are from America or from Africa, I don't get the point of this attempt of separation. Like, we don't have, I
We
don't
can't afford
understand
it.
the point here.
No, we can't afford it.
We're out organized. And so, Larry Davis, gentlemen, this conversation is problematic. Tell me how.
I'm cool. I'm actually cool with this thought. Like, if there is a belief that they have that they have a different experience, then I'm fine with that. The question then becomes: does that mean that we are no longer going to be fighting for the same issues, the shared experiences that we have?
Exactly.
If that's the problem, then that's a problem. Like, I think of this very similarly to how I think about, like, this whole ADOS versus, like, Jamaican or other immigrants who are coming to America, whether or not we should be, whether we should get the benefit of, like, affirmative action in some of those other programs. And quite frankly, I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm fighting the same battles and the same struggles as a Black American. And so, to the extent that I am, even though I grew up in Jamaica and moved here, like, I recognize that on a day-to-day, my experiences are very, very similar. And therefore, I don't really find the relevance of trying to make a separation, to the extent that what is for Black Americans is for Black Americans. Fine. I'm actually okay with that. But it doesn't change that as we're fighting for the rights that we ultimately are trying to achieve, and I'm big on, like, economic empowerment. Like, if we're fighting the same battle, then that's cool. Like, I'm okay so long as we're not using it as a tool for separation, which has historically been what has happened within our community.
Spread the message amongst your people, so later on we can all get on code. We can't even agree on what to call ourselves. I've said Black Indians. That's wrong. Some people use Black to bring us together. Others, some see it as pulling us. I'm not Black. I'm indigenous. Black is a color.
Listen, if we can't get past this, like, we got so many bigger issues.
I respect you, whatever you do. I just want to know: are we going to work together against this system that's been causing us problems? Are we working together or not? That's all I want to know. Are you on a team or not?
Yeah,
I think that's the question.
It's actually, like, it's really kind of. I don't know that I was very aware of this issue as an issue, and quite frankly, I think, it's actually kind of sad, because there are just so many other things happening, and, like, the fact that we are spending time fighting about this point, to me, is like, there's so many other things that we should be focusing on. I don't know that I get the point of this separation now, because unless you think you're going to benefit from this structure by calling it out, I mean, you can have pride, and I'm cool with like people having pride or nationalism or whatever they want, but I don't know that I understand the point of the separation.
Let me give you an example of why we can't agree on terms. Because if we're going to be critical, so you see this Latero below. Our correct term is American Indian. Okay, I got it. America. Turtle Island is really more it. But America, if I'm not mistaken, was Amerigo Vespucci an Italian? You know, we can't get caught up on words, because when you dig into the etymology and where words come from and who, Powhatan, I know that's Native American. I know that's Native. Sequoia. These are names of streets here in Baltimore that we see all the time, names right before us. And there's so much history to know. And we are not trying to separate. We are really trying to come to some consensus. I enjoy talking to Black people from all over the diaspora. I've historically looked at this from an Afrocentric perspective. If now I'm being presented information that older culture is actually here, hey, show me, teach me. But meanwhile, can we work together on not losing 5 Black congressional districts? Because truth be told, and let me just put it out there, since we're getting all into this and that, to make it relevant, I want to know who's with this guy in DC, who's okay with him, because according to one poll done actually on this show, not by me, a lot of people are okay with this guy in DC. Truth be told, he off the hook. I hear Black people defending this guy.
Yeah.
He off the hook. It's just a matter of time before they impeach him. He got rid of 5, am I right, Venroy? 5 Black congressional districts in Texas.
Yeah, I mean the people in Texas,
and that's supposed to be
the people in Texas did it because they're kowtowing to him, right? So that's the he ain't getting impeached. That's
one last piece. I heard a brother justifying the unleashing of the National Guard on DC. Just one question. Where were they on January the 6th?
Yeah, there's so much to
am I missing something?
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking. I get it. Some people find DC off the hook, send in the guard. I got you. But where were they January 6th? I think 5-6 people got killed.
Yeah.
So keep it 100. That's all I'm saying.
If we're going to have urban war, which is really what is happening when you talk about a force coming in and occupying a city, the real war that we must have must be on poverty, because poverty in America is at the core of the issue. And you would find that people of certain ethnicity tend to be more in poverty than others. And I think that's really where we can't get away from the fact that we've got to address poverty.
Say it again. We got to address what?
Poverty. Poverty is the real. If we're going to have a war, if you want to occupy a city, let's make certain that the attack is on poverty, because poverty is at the root of many of our issues in our urban areas and in America. Truly, is poverty. It's amazing that you would spend that much money for occupying a city and not spend that much money to improve the lives of the people of that city.
You know, let me say something about crime, because I hear a lot of people saying this, Rev. And Rev, Rev, let me ask you this, Rev.
Mm-hmm.
We only got a couple minutes. Bob Venroy, you've run for office. Baltimore City and Prince George's County are in a perpetual race for the bottom in terms of public education, right? Out of 24 jurisdictions, Baltimore, majority Black, Prince George's County, majority Black jurisdictions in the state of Maryland are consistently at the bottom. We got money. We agreed to the legislature in 1973 for money for public education from the lottery. Over 15, 16 billion dollars has come through, yet we have schools with no air and no heat. And this is separate from indigenous. Why isn't there outrage? We have a school CEO making more than the mayor. I think she in the 300s. Brought here, pat on the back by Andre Salonzo. He got rid of 75% of the big mamas who were principals. They replaced them with white girls from Teach for America, white men from Teach for America. They got rid of big mama out of the school system. 75% of the principals bounced. Isn't that the real reason for crime? That kids don't want to go to school? That our children are illiterate, they can't read? Isn't that why crime is high? They're frustrated. I mean, it starts at home, don't get me wrong. It all starts at home. But we also have a mass incarceration problem here in Baltimore. I live in 21217. We have the highest incarceration rate, where your center is, the Thurgood Marshall Center. We have the highest recidivism rate in the state, 70% upwards, 70% single mother Black households.
I talked to a principal on Tuesday who indicated to me, and this is a school there in 21217, that 68% of her students are chronically absent. I said, how do you define chronically absent? Chronically absent means that you have missed 18 days or more from the school year, which is 180 days. I said, well, how's your first week been? She says, I have a large number of students who in the first week have missed 2 days. So you're right. How do we have schools that are not centers of exciting, inspiring, and informing, such that students want to be there? Young people want to be there. When I was going to school, we wanted to be to school. Where else could you be but school? And I think you're right. We have failed in many ways when our schools are not exciting centers of learning that they should be.
Public education, Van Roy. Do you have public education in Jamaica, or you got to pay to go to public school?
We had to pay, actually. We had to pay. But we also don't have as, I mean, it's interesting because Jamaica's educational system up through like high school is like actually pretty, at least when I was there, it was actually pretty solid. Like by the time we got to America, it felt like we were much more like the educational system was much more rigorous there. But I want to get back to like this issue in Baltimore. I mean, like, look, I think that I want us to, it's I want us to like stay on theme about like not like trying to be the basic, like to say things that are just like for the purpose of like separation.
Right.
Like all of this stuff, like, it's up. I find myself in the middle ground because I kind of hear what the people in the chat are talking about in terms of like the messaging that we have been taught, and I think that actually like goes throughout like this conversation, right? Like, yes, it is, and I've actually sit on a number of boards. I actually just got elected I just got selected to be on the KIP Baltimore board. I was on the board of Green Street Academy. And so we talk a lot about these issues around like, absenteeism and things of that sort. I think it's very difficult for us to separate that conversation from the conversation around, poverty and the history of Baltimore and why we are seeing things that we are seeing. Like you're 100% right, Donnie. To the extent that we have all this money coming in, why is it not being allocated better to provide resources to our students? The problem, quite frankly, is that I just don't think that this is probably going to be somewhat controversial. The reality is that, like, I just don't think that Baltimore feels like sometimes just doesn't know better. It's like we've just gotten it's like we do the same things over and over again, and I'm it excites me when I see things are trying to change, but it just takes time, man. And it's like we don't have time for it. It feels like we don't have time to see our kids having to like continuously have these low achievement rates and not going to school and things like that. But like, it's a very complicated. I don't just want to minimize it to be like, oh, it's because of the fact that they're single mothers and blah blah blah. Like, I don't want it to be it's not as simple. It's like, this is historic. This is like things that have been indoctrinated in us. These are things. A lot of the students that we were talking to, they're not going to school because they're going to work, because they gotta get money to come into the house. And chronic absenteeism, you can miss class one day. I'm not saying this is okay, but you miss class one day a week and you're chronically absent, right? So like, what happens if you get sick? Like, there's just a lot of things. Like, I one of the things that I've actually been pushing is like, we need to dig into what it actually means to have, like, for chronic absenteeism, right? Because we need to like understand what are the causes why are these kids not coming to school? And so it's a very complicated conversation that we can't like minimize as just, simple talking points. But I just don't think that we're prepared to actually have those conversations, which is the most frustrating part to me about like everything that happens in Baltimore.
Rev, why with a black mayor, black governor, the largest black legislature in the country, why don't we have black history oozing out of every medium possible? I don't mean the two famous Marylanders, Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass. I mean Little Willie Adams. I mean Tom Smith, who was the man before Little Willie Adams. I mean Reginald Lewis. Why isn't Reginald Lewis a mandatory part of the public education curriculum for all of Maryland's young people? Why aren't we inserting the black history that we didn't get as children? Why aren't we inserting that today?
Yeah, I think that's unfortunate. My social studies teacher was Dr. Samuel T. Banks. Dr. Samuel Banks was also the president of the Carter G. Woodson, which is now the Association for the Study of Negro Life. I forgot all the name of it. He put a curriculum in place that got fought around teaching persons of who they were and whose they were. This is one thing I want to say. I want to be very positive. My work there at PS 103, that's known as the Justice Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center, I'm creating a legacy wall. On that legacy wall is going to be a mural where I'm inviting the students that attended that school to come back and have their photographs and begin to tell their stories. I'm amazed at the number of people who've come through that school and have done amazing things. We should know about them. Gene Hitchcock is one. I can just go down the line. Yvonne Lanzi is another banker. I go down the line. Michael Mitchell, city councilman, state senator. The names of people that have gone and education has been influential in their lives. Those are the historical stories we need to tell.
Vinroy,
I actually wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm always one of the, I say this all the time. One of the biggest differentiators in me and my experience in Jamaica growing up versus here, and I just think just like generally, is that like when I grew up in Jamaica, it was, there's this sense of like pride, like this history of like Jamaican heritage is something that is like, it's beat into you from your childhood. Like there's an immense sense of pride from thinking about what your ancestors have done, and you also are having lived experiences where you're seeing Black people who are doing well. And quite frankly, it goes a lot to the things that myself and Dr. Hathaway are doing, right? When I started living in this neighborhood, a big part of it was I remember having arguments about it. Like, I think it is important for our children to see lawyers and doctors and teachers and others that look like them living in the same neighborhoods as them, going or like in these neighborhoods. What has happened, in my view, in part, is this stratification within our communities. All of this stuff is about division, right? Like that's an underlying theme here. It's like this division, like right, like in Jamaica and in other countries that I've been to, it's like there's an intermingling of like social class, particularly within diverse communities, which is very different here, right? Like it feels like when you become Black and have a little bit, or melanated, and get a little bit of money, you move away from the places where there is a higher concentration of melanated people. And that to me is problematic. And I think that if you go back and look to the issues around redlining and white flight, when nobody wants to talk about, it's also that black flight, that black people with money then ran and followed the people out of the county. And right, so like this idea, like I think it's like all connected. If you grew up from a place where you're being constantly taught, you know, the pride of people who look like you, their achievement, and you also get to see that on a daily basis. You're interacting with those people. That means something. But even if you hear it and then you never see anybody that's doing well that looks like you because everybody has left the community and gone elsewhere, I mean, yeah, it can still be powerful, but it's not the same, right? Like it doesn't hit the same. And so, like, I just think there's a part of this that has like, there needs to, you know, look, the reality is that there is some part that says the people who have money, they can afford to pay for better schooling. And that's correct, right? Like that's a reality. But it's like, what are you leaving behind? Like, we can't be sitting here talking about, oh, we shouldn't be disconnected from indigenous.
Put your money where your mouth is.
As soon as you get some money, you separate yourself from everybody who don't have money.
And that's what people watching the show, I pray that they understand that both of you have invested. I live in Sandtown. You both have invested within a mile of my house in West Baltimore.
I've been there for a decade. Right? Like,
you both,
I think it's important.
You both put your money where your mouth is.
I think it, yeah. Somebody's called, people said I'm an interloper. That's the latest thing I've
welcome interloper. You can come here. You got a safe space here.
Recently. It's like, this makes no sense. I grew up in places where I remember in my neighborhood, there was a guy that worked at like a factory, but there were teachers, there were accountants, it was just a mix of different professionals. And that to me is one of the biggest differences between my experiences in Jamaica versus here. It's like the stratification of class, like of economic class and where people live and where they stay versus like that community. That is one of the issues that we don't ever really want to talk about within our community.
You mean the brain drain? Those of us who move beyond the Beltway? It's okay to move beyond the Beltway. Just don't sell grandma's house. Make sure you keep it in the family. Don't stop going back to the community. Hey Rev, you've seen a church. You've seen what happens over the past 20 years to black churches.
Yeah.
Populations move. They don't want to come back to the community on Sunday.
Yeah, the community churches are different than when I grew up, where everybody walked to church. You know, I would just say as we close, and I know we are, one of the things that, well, I would just say one of the, we need to realize as we talk about legacy and history, it is connected to place. However you might want to describe place, whether it's Jamaica, whether my sisters want to say they're American Indians, there's a place. In Baltimore, we have to make certain that which is of our legacy, that we protect place. I was born in the 1500 block of Division Street. I developed a building in the 1300 block of Division Street. I lived in the 1200 block of Drill Avenue. I served in the 1200 block of Drill Avenue. I served on the corner of Pennsylvania and Dolphin. I bought my first house at 800 block of Harlem Avenue. I've spent 40 years in a community, and I've invested in that community because I love that community and I love the people, and that place is important and significant.
Well, Venroy, let me tell you, I'm not sure where these people are coming from or where they're going, but I am grateful to have you here, and you are always welcome in my world, in my circle, in my house, in my community. And thank you for investing in our community and investing in people that look like us. Thank you. And if you ever need my help, I'm just up the block. That's how we stick together. That's how we help. Because truth be told, we outnumbered. A lot of our brothers and sisters are incarcerated or adjudicated. Others have moved beyond the Beltway. And then there's the class thing. There are those who only get invited to the light skin parties or the VIP parties, the parties that are not for everybody. Venroy, one of your heroes. I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Nani, the Maroon Queen in Jamaica. You know about Nani, Dr. Al?
I just know the name, but this is what I will say. I know when I go to the Penn Relays, it is no question that Jamaica is in the
We are a prideful people. We create scholars and athletes.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. How can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you and the work that you're doing, and put a plug in for your respective operations? Let's start with you, Rev.
Yeah, the Justice Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center, which is PS 103, the Henry Highland Garnett School, developed by Beloved Community Services Corporation, www.belovedcorp, BELOVED Corp, CORP.com, www.belovedcorp.com. Go on our website. Please connect with us. We're trying to do great things in that community.
Now, Rev, you got to plug your event.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things, if you think about September the 18th, we're having the Monumental Bar Association in partnership with Beloved Community Services Corporation. We're gonna screen a documentary on Thurgood Marshall called Becoming Thurgood. That's by it's going to be by the Maryland Public Television Station. That's going to be September the 18th. It begins at 6:00 p.m. We're going to bring the lawyers together. We're going to ask the question, after looking at Thurgood Marshall, what's next? What do we do now? Because all that Thurgood was about is under attack by this administration.
To people watching this show, now, Venroy, you're a lawyer. I want you to put your lawyer hat on. Big ups to Thurgood Marshall. His home is just around the corner from my block. First Black Supreme Court Justice from Baltimore. Your center is in his honor. He went to school. Man, it is a surreal experience when you think Thurgood Marshall was right here. A man who somehow who had the mindset that I can be the first Black Supreme Court Justice, even in a racist America. Bring that full circle for me, Rev.
This is how that happened. The principal, because his classmate was Cab Calloway, so they were always getting in trouble. So the principal would send young Thurgood, down into what they call timeout, and will give him a copy of the Constitution to read. Thurgood would later remark that by the time I graduated from that school, I knew the Constitution by heart. We're talking about first grade through 8th grade. He skipped the 7th grade. He's talking about 7 years of education. He learned the Constitution. Can you imagine what would happen if our students in Baltimore City learned the Constitution by the 7th grade?
Be a lot less people getting locked up.
Yes, sir.
So they Venroy, they ain't letting you out here easy.
Oh, I'm not seeing what's being said, but listen, I'm always up for a good combo. So anybody who knows.
Well, you know, we only do love and respect here. We've had a lot of wonderful comments. There's one of them right there. But so one of the things we talked about, and I don't know if I said it. Are we Moors? Are we Hebrews? Are we indigenous? And you know about the Moors coat of arms, Venroy?
I'm not.
Well, here's the question for you, Venroy. And DP says you look like his cousin. And that's the thing, man. I done been to Africa seeing people look like somebody around the way.
Ain't no question.
So this is from Sweet Feather for you, Venroy. Ask Venroy if you know about the coat of arms.
Yes, that's it.
So those are Moors. Those are Moors. And the interesting thing is,
coat of arms.
huh?
That's a Jamaica coat of arms.
Yes. So do you know about the European coat of arms?
No.
So I'll show you one of them. For every European nation, there is a coat of arms. I mean, every single one, from Scotland to Germany to England. As a matter of fact, and a guy tried to beat him up on the show. I don't know enough about him to try to beat him up. I was actually grateful for his research. The boy Tariq Nasheed. I thought.
I just want to
He
So
did
I'm
the
asking
Moors video, and I thought he did a great job. I'm sorry.
the person that asked to see this. I guess I'm trying to tie this back to the.
I'm getting ready to do it for you. So and I just shared with you, every European nation has a coat of arms, and they want you to understand how Jamaica is a part, I presume, of a much larger story.
Yeah, but
And
we know that this is this is the problem. This is the problem that I have. Like this
yes,
is not new to me. This is not
yes,
education.
yes.
I grew up knowing about the Arawaks and the Caribs and the different indigenous groups that were there. We know about when Columbus came and saw that's nothing. That doesn't
So
take that
this is
doesn't
another one. This is
I'm
Scott.
not being that's not that to me is not inconsistent with the conversations that we're having. You
You're
can
right.
both have had indigenous people that were there long before Columbus and others, and also acknowledge that there was an African presence that resulted from the slave trade. Like those two things are not inconsistent. And to the extent that there are Jamaicans who only can trace their roots back to Arawaks or Caribs, then great for them. But we're not gonna sit here and act as if like
Segment
the
each other.
majority, like the black experience in Jamaica is not rooted in the African slave trade. Like that's just
It's
not
bigger than
legitimate.
that.
Like we understand, like we can both. It can be both and. It can be both and. Like and just whoever believes that they are indigenous and they are Arawak or Carib, great for them. But I know that we had African ancestry, African. I know that to be true, and so I don't
Actually, the story told is that they put y'all off the boat first.
because cane cultivation was it was a harder process, so they got rid of the the ones that were like the most rebellious and dropped them off in Jamaica and the other places that were sugar cane.
I'm sorry, DP. I'm sorry, ma'am. You just got DP. No picture, nothing. I'm sorry. So sorry. DP is a lady. I won't mess that up again. Gentlemen, hey, Rev. No, those are Arawak. Okay, these are Arawak Indians, just so you know, and they look like you. Okay, Rev, take us home in prayer, because we do believe in prayer. Is that all right with you, Vin Roy?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I was laughing at the fact that they said that the coat of arms looks like me. Like, what does that even mean?
I'm ever reminded of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and he would always quote James Russell Lowell, and he would say, "Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet the scaffold sways the future, and standing in the dim unknown standeth God, keeping watch over his own." And I believe that is the case. And it has historically been the case. It is the case today and will be the case tomorrow. God is keeping watch over his own.
Amen. I'll show you. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this beautiful conversation.
Bless you now.
Not
Take
more
care.
sweet feather, I can't win. I thank you. And good evening all.
Bless you there.
All right.
Right.
Subscribe and like the thing. I never remember to say that. Subscribe, please subscribe and like. Thank you again, Rev.
Thank you now.
Rev, we got to do something down your shop soon. I got a new book coming out. I got to get my book on there.
We got to do
Black
that.
Blueprint, Baltimore to Burkina Faso. I got to get it. I got to do a book signing. My book is here. I send it back, and I should have it in a week or so. I got to do something at the Thurgood Marshall Center. I got you publicly.
Let's do something big.
Yes, sir. Thank you, big brother.
All right, then. Take care.
Good evening.
Bless you now.
Yes, sir.